Previously on Faith and Facts.
Pastors would always say, well, when did you pray when did you do the prayer, right? And I kept thinking, I didn't do that.
Yeah.
And it wasn't really until a few years ago when I read Brother Troy Carlson, no relation, his book about
Settled and Strong.
Settled and Strong, yeah. Exactly. And I read through that book and I said, oh wow, yes.
Yeah.
That's exactly what it was. Parents are very often disengaged from their children's education. They want the schools to raise their children.
Yeah.
The school has to instruct, but the parents are the ones who are supposed to be teaching.
Right.
And disciplining.
All right, so looking at family and culture, many people believe that family is under attack today. I personally believe that it is, and I assume you do.
I do.
But why?
Okay, let's go back to the book of Genesis.
Okay, yes.
Because that's when everything started.
Sure.
So you have in all throughout chapter 1 where the account of creation is written, well, 1 and 2. At the end of every day, God said that what he had just done was either good or very good.
Right.
Until you get to the middle of chapter 2, where God noticed that Adam was alone. And he said, I think in 2:18, he said, it is not good that man should be alone. So that's when he created woman. Mm-hmm. He created woman, he created Eve. The family was created. So family is ordained by God, right? So then Adam and Eve had Cain and Abel, and shortly after that, Cain killed Abel.
Right.
Before then, you had the fall of man. And so that was when Satan first started attacking the family structure.
Yeah.
So Adam and Eve were together. They didn't have children at that time. But what happened in Genesis 3, verse 1? I'm going to read it because I'm going to mess it up otherwise. Now the serpent was more subtle than any beast of the field which the Lord God had made. And after that, the serpent convinced Adam and Eve to eat the fruit, and the fall happened, sin entered the world. So ever since then, and it was shortly after that that Cain killed Abel. So ever since then, Satan has been attacking the family structure. Fast forward to the communist revolution. In the late 1920s, a gentleman named Leonid Zabzovich, he was the urban planner for Lenin and Stalin.
Okay.
And he advocated separating children from the parents because he believed that children were the property of the state.
Interesting.
And so you separate the children from the parents. Now the state educates them. The state is in total control over what those children read and believe.
Okay.
And that's the way the Soviet or the communist system perpetuated itself over the years. I mean, yes, there was force, a lot of force involved, but it was total indoctrination. So now you come to American culture, and you look at what's happening out there in the entertainment world. You have these huge media outlets. You got Nickelodeon, ABC Family, and our favorite, Disney. Mm-hmm. And what do those, among others, channels? What do the shows, the programs on those networks convey? Well, they convey that family can be whatever, the family structure can be whatever you want it to be.
Sure.
They belittle men and fathers, and they even go so far as to, advocate, maybe not overtly advocating, but they certainly have a lot of shows that don't have fathers involved,
Yeah.
in the family structure.
Yeah.
So they're essentially saying men are not needed. And so that's just a huge breakdown. So you have, and it's all satanic, because Satan started this way back when.
Right.
And you have Hollywood, who's all too happy to carry that torch.
Yeah. Yeah. So the entertainment, huge. I mean, when you mentioned how Disney and all these different things, I mean, I can think of a few shows off the top of my head that either the father is basically an idiot and doesn't know what he's doing.
Exactly.
Or he's just not there.
Right.
And mom's there, she's the only authority, but mom just lets kids do whatever, and
Right.
kids run the show. And then that's what happens at home. And then the kids, when they're watching this, they're being force-fed and indoctrinated, really, with this information now. Either, dad doesn't know what he's thinking, and we actually should be ruling the home. We should be able to get away with whatever we want.
Dad's a buffoon, doesn't know anything. The kids are always the smartest ones.
Yeah.
Right? They're out doing their, you just see it. They're out starting their little businesses or whatever it is that they do.
Yeah.
And which of course does not happen in real life. But you're right. That's what the kids see. Amber, when she was growing up, she watched that stuff, and it wasn't so much Disney, but she watched these shows that were, it was called something like, Sweet 16 birthday parties.
Okay.
And it was shows about rich people, of course, having these huge blowout parties, birthday parties for their kids.
Yeah.
What's going to be the natural outcome of that? That's what the kids who watch it, that's what they expect 15 and 16-year-old birthday parties to be.
Yeah. And then they get a 15, 16-year-old birthday party, and it's not even
It's
close.
not that, right.
Because we're not rich, and we can't give you a crazy, yeah. So, I mean, I grew up, and I think at the outset, it's not necessarily wrong to watch this. I mean, I grew up a Disney kid. Nothing wrong with that. We grew up with the old Disney cartoons, the old Disney shows, and all that stuff like that,
Yep.
Disney movies. I mean, there's probably still a little bit of that in there, but even growing up, it was still my parents still teaching me, hey, this is what the movie says, but this is real life. Like, that's just entertainment, so you guys can enjoy it, and that's not what we also. Another thing, it's not what we spent all of our time doing. Like, we only had a certain amount of screen time we could have every day. So mom and dad filtered what we could watch, and they watched it first to make sure there wasn't anything else in it, things like that. So that way we wouldn't be force-fed those things, and that's also not what we did all the time. So then our brains what happens is our brains go into idle mode, and then we take in all this information, and then now that's how we're thinking, that's how we're being wired, which we're going to have a special guest here in a little bit at some point talking about the brain and different things like that.
Okay.
But just being force-fed all those different things, and now you have kids with the position they are now, and just think very independent, they can do whatever they want, and then they go into life, and it's not how the real world is. I mean, I work at Chick-fil-A as a manager, and I deal with all these not little kids, but teenagers.
Young adults,
teenagers that think they're all that, and they've got all their stuff figured out.
Right.
But they're the laziest people in the world, and they want the money, but they don't want the work that goes along with getting the money. And really, a lot of that comes back to either family training or the things that they watch, books that they read, people they hang out with, and stuff like that.
Disney's a really interesting study because on the one hand, you have the parks, and how are the parks promoted? Family.
Yeah.
And then you have the movie, Disney Studios, the TV networks, and it goes back to what we were just saying. Disney is really, really bad about this. Is okay. Let's show the fathers as being buffoons and idiots, and they're really not needed. The kids are really the kids are really the brains behind the entire operation.
Yeah.
And so that tears the family down. And then you have, kind of it goes into the entertainment side of it too, but Disney's huge emphasis on transgenderism and the LGBT lifestyle, which certainly are not, I mean, LGBT lifestyle, I mean, does not perpetuate family.
Yeah,
It
absolutely
can't. And so you have this huge push corporate-wise to essentially destroy the family.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have them going into the park saying, hey, bring your families here.
Yeah.
And, I love Disney World.
Yeah.
I would love to be able to go to Disney World,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm not going to support the company that is doing such harm to our culture.
Yeah.
Now, when they come out and they say, oh my gosh, we now realize that, we shouldn't have been supporting, these political movements, then I'll go back into the park.
Yeah.
But until then,
Yeah. I mean, they've lost money from it too, so just a little bit there. But yeah, I mean, when
Yeah.
we grew up Disney kids, I mean, Disneyland, we'd go every I don't know, 3 or 4 years maybe. And I mean, that's what I grew up with. We grew up with all the old things because Disney wasn't always that way.
no, it wasn't.
And I mean, Walt would not be happy with where his
He's
company
spinning in his
is.
grave.
Yeah, exactly. He's not happy where it's at now.
Right.
So also, like, how has cultural changes also affected education?
Well, it's, classrooms are a reflection of the culture.
Sure.
Kind of what I was saying before. You have teachers. Now you got so many young teachers coming in. I mean, every year we hire new,
Mm-hmm.
first year teachers, and obviously, the older ones retire, and so these young teachers come in. They're part of the social media culture.
Mm-hmm.
TikTok. They don't use Facebook, but Instagram, and whatever the other venues are, and so they oftentimes don't see, kind of a filter on things.
Yeah.
Let me keep my personal life separate from my professional life.
Mm-hmm.
Let me come in and just teach
Yeah.
instead of trying to share my beliefs.
Mm-hmm.
You don't care what your beliefs are.
Yeah.
And so that's where the culture, comes into the classroom. And of course, on the student side, it's the same thing.
Yeah.
When you have breakdown in the family, I tell you, when we do or expulsion hearings, it's like a recipe, because we always get the facts of the matter ahead of time and we read through them, and it's always a long process. It's not like someone does something,
Sure.
and then ends up getting expelled, a couple weeks later. It's always a long process, and each one is almost identical in terms, not the acts, but the structure. Okay, you have a parent, usually the mother, who has a name. You have the student, who's getting in trouble, who has a different last name.
Mm-hmm.
Mother may have a boyfriend, maybe not, and it's always the family circumstances are almost always the same. That's why I call it a recipe,
Huh.
because you had these conditions in the family, and then now you got this student sitting in front of us, and we're going to vote to expel him or her from school.
Huh. So cultural, I mean, really goes back to entertainment. Then people, just the family changes a lot of how education is affected.
Absolutely.
I mean, the teachers also have lives too that are affected by family as well. So kids and teachers alike,
Right.
both. So yeah, family is huge. And then, but for that, how should Christian parents stay engaged in their children's education?
Like I said before, you absolutely need to be talking with your children and staying up to date on what's happening in that classroom, both in terms of what's being taught and just the other conversations and things that are happening in the classroom. There was, I saw a math problem a few years ago, and it talked about, they were trying to, do some fractions.
Sure.
And so it was boys, the number of boys, the number of girls, and the number of others. That wasn't a math problem. There are no others.
Yeah, there's just number of boys, number of girls, number of animals. I mean,
Right.
it's something
right.
else. Yeah. So, because I mean, when I grew up, my parents, I mean, my dad was a youth pastor and we had a school here. And my parents would still ask me, like, hey, what'd you learn today? I mean, they do that for Sunday school, and not now because I don't live in the home.
Right.
But I mean, they grew up, hey, what'd you learn in Sunday school today? Or what'd you learn about this? Whenever we learned anything or went to any sort of something we were learning, it was always, what'd you learn about today? And going back to what you said, even in church, like, it's important to know what your kids are learning,
Mm-hmm.
because even in church, sometimes you can get a teacher that's not having right doctrine.
Absolutely.
And the pastor might not know about it because they start
Right.
out good. And it's happened before here a long time ago at Sun and Shield,
Yeah.
where right when they first started, but now they're not so right. And then people find out, they ask their kids, hey, what'd you learn today? We learned this. That's not what the Bible says. And then now the pastor can take care of it. So, I mean,
Exactly.
school, like, just anytime your kids are learning anything, asking them, because then it also helps you to be able, I feel like it helps you to also engage with the kids
Oh,
as
yeah.
well, which is also important, because when you go home with kids with these devices, now you have a kid at 4 that has a phone, and then they go home and they're just sitting on their phone, and there's no engagement between anyone in the family. Yeah, dad,
Yeah.
mom, all of them are there, but they're not engaging with each other, so there's not that strong connection, things
Mm-hmm.
like that. So it also helps engagement as well.
That's the other big cultural thing is the phones.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
Yeah.
And yeah, the parents are horrible. Parents are absolutely 100% horrible about this because they want their kids to have the phones
Yeah.
in class. Well, because why? Well, what if something happens? You know, they need to contact us. Well, you know what?
You have teachers and all kinds of different
Right.
people there that have that ability
Right.
as well.
If you really need to reach your child, you can call the office.
Mm-hmm.
That's how my parents did it.
Yeah.
And if I needed to contact them, you go to the office and you call.
Yeah.
You don't need to, have it in your hand.
Yeah.
And it's really bad because now our district has really kind of cracked the whip in the last couple of years. We've always had a policy that phones are not allowed in the classroom.
Good.
Always had it.
Good.
It was never enforced
Huh.
until a couple of years ago. We really cracked down, and so yeah, kids have the phones. If the teacher sees them using them in the class, they give them a warning. The second time it happens, the phone gets confiscated for the remainder of class.
Good.
Third time it happens, now you're going to the principal, and you don't bring your phone on campus.
Huh.
So
Awesome.
parents don't like it, but
I mean, it distracts from the classroom. And
Yeah.
then cheating becomes easier.
Cheating.
And all this stuff too. I mean, it's crazy because really working at Chick-fil-A, serving people, different things like that, ordering out an order to a table, and all of a sudden you see all 4 family members, from a kid that's 4 years old all the way to dad, and they're all on their phone doing whatever, distracting. I mean, the family's really under attack, and we can really see it through education.
a few years ago, Brenda and I went out to Tennessee, and we went to Dollywood,
Uh-huh.
and that's in Pigeon Forge. And the thing that really stood out to us was in the restaurants in the park, you didn't have that.
Really?
You had the families, the parents and the kids were sitting around at the table,
Mm-hmm.
no phones. They were there together,
Yeah.
doing what they're supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
And in the restaurants in town, it was the same thing that we saw.
Mm-hmm.
And that made a huge impression on me. I don't think it was just because they were there.
Yeah.
I think it was because that's the way the parents had raised the kids.
Yeah.
And those kids they're going to benefit from that.
Absolutely. Yeah. So that's just something that's kind of sad to see sometimes, just doing that. But then, I mean, I wasn't allowed to have a phone until I was 16. My uncle bought me a phone because he got it for free through like Xfinity or whatever. So I got a phone. But even then, I still had limitations on what I could do. I mean, I didn't have access to the internet, which I think is a great thing to have.
Right.
And I only had a certain amount of time. Calling and texting was always available in case I needed to get a hold of my mom because I was working at I was working for a guy in our church who had horses. I was clean out stalls and things like that.
Yep.
So I mean, calling and texting was unlimited, but the other things had a time limit. And then when it's time for bed, then the phone goes out in the living room and doesn't ever go into the room, which I think is also important, just for safety of the kid, because then you have to deal with pornography and all these different things.
Right.
And it's just so easily available to anybody, and then now the kid's on a path of destruction, ultimately. So
Right.
yeah, so a lot of cultural things as a result of really devices and stuff like that.
Absolutely.
So yeah, talked about it a lot with the class I was taking with youth class, because we had to read a book called 12 Ways Your Phone is Changing You and different things like that. So really interesting study and just things to look at there.
Yeah.
So little off on a rabbit trail.
Right.
But that's okay. So, but looking back at history, do you think these cultural issues appeared suddenly, or have they, been developing for decades, slowly over time?
For millennia. Started in Genesis.
Yeah, because we talked about it earlier. I mean, literally we don't know how long it was between the time Adam and Eve were created and when the serpent tempted them.
Right.
From what I've seen, I don't know if the Bible gives a clear timeline. I haven't done a lot of study on it, but we don't know, from my understanding, what that time frame was.
Right.
So, but since Genesis chapter number 3, Satan was in there already telling the wife, did God say this? Which really, she's not just doubting God, she's also doubting what her husband told her. Because if you look in Genesis, God told Adam what the rule was. He didn't ever tell Eve, from what we saw.
True.
So he's getting her to doubt her husband and what God said. So destroying the home at the root of the home, which is between the husband and wife.
Right.
Destroying it there. So yeah,
yeah,
like you said, very beginning.
From the very, very beginning. And, I don't know what happened, in the medieval times and whatnot. But then when communism came around, in the 1920s, the teens and 20s, that's probably when it really started taking off.
Yeah, because you had the state wanting to push their agenda. And you can kind of see it in certain places in the U.S. today. You have your Socialist Party and different things. They won't say they're communist because communism necessarily isn't a good thing.
Right.
Socialist doesn't sound so bad, so we'll use that when it's really just it's the same thing.
And they can soften it further by putting the word democratic in front of it.
Yeah.
Democratic socialist.
Yeah. So then it sounds, this sounds way better than, just a straight up socialist.
It's different. It's a different flavor of it.
Yeah. So when I grew up in school, socialist, fascist, Marxist, communism, none of those things were good. And if any of those popped up in any political anything, you stay as far away from any of those as possible.
Oh, it got called out.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And that's not, you don't follow that stuff.
Right.
But now it's like you follow it because in all reality it's sin.
Right.
And you have what is right and what is wrong, and men see what is wrong as what is right, and what is right is now wrong. The Bible even talks about that. So you see a lot of that today. But why is understanding history so important when discussing education today?
Well, you understand. You want to understand history so you don't repeat it.
Right.
That's a. Historians always like to say that.
It's a huge history quote. Yeah.
Right. But knowing where we came from and seeing mistakes that were made, that's what the socialists of today say. Well, socialism or communism didn't work because it had these flaws.
Yeah.
We can fix it. Well, actually, you can't.
Not how that works.
You can't.
Yeah.
Because, but yeah, it's a matter of your overall situational awareness. If you want to develop a plan to go in this direction, then you kind of, it's helpful to understand others who have gone down that or started to go down that path.
Yeah.
And maybe got sidetracked. So I'm trying to for some reason, Pilgrim's Progress comes to my mind now.
Yeah, because you had the story of Christian going through all these things, and so just kind of backtracking where he was. How did he end up in the Slough of Despond and different things like that? How did he get there? When I took a history class, my history teacher was awesome, but he used that quote a lot because really, when we're looking back at American history, just world history in general, you can see the steps that were taken to get to this position of Marxism, for instance, right?
Mhm.
And communism, it didn't necessarily start off bad, right? It didn't start off as necessarily a bad thing at the very, very beginning. The government started as a bad thing, but as different progressions happened, and you had dictatorship, and it really comes down to sin. And socialism will never work unless everybody's absolutely perfect.
Right.
And what we will have in the end of time for all eternity is a theocracy, and God will be in charge,
Right.
and we'll all be perfect by that point. All those who are saved will be perfect, so we don't have to worry about it. But the only way socialism and all that will work is if everybody has no sin and is perfect, because then we are caring about each other.
Mhm.
But because of our sin nature, it will never work. So
All have sinned and fall short of the glory of God.
exactly, and because of that, we're all we care about us more than anybody else. So if you needed bread and I've worked all these things, well, no, I'm not giving you my bread because you're not working or I'm not working,
Right.
and you don't deserve it. So whereas socialism is like, oh, we just need to care about each other and everyone gives for everything, and then
Mhm.
now nobody's working, so somebody has to go work,
Right.
so everyone can get fed, and it's just not gonna work. So I mean, when I was in school, that was something that was not good, and I feel like that's
Yeah.
not necessarily what's all being taught.
I think it was
today.
Margaret Thatcher said, socialism's fine until you run out of other people's money.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's what it comes down to.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So, we kind of talked about media influence and how much television and all that stuff has. We talked about that a lot already.
Mhm.
Things like that. So, going to the COVID and school leadership, during COVID shutdowns, you took a different position, like you said earlier, than the rest of the board. What led you to making those decisions?
It was just a natural inquiry that I had. So, December of 2019, January of 2020, you started in the media and the news, you started hearing some things about a sickness.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't pay attention to it then. But then I think it was in January, February timeframe when it landed here.
Yeah.
I thought, okay, maybe this is something. But of course, it had already moved across Europe by that point in time. And so I saw everybody kind of really freaking out, the media
Yeah.
and the politicians.
Right.
And that right there, so that was a clue,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? That, maybe there's something going on here.
Right.
Right?
Right.
And, maybe it's not the way the media is portraying it.
Mm-hmm.
So I started looking at what was happening what had happened in Europe, and what the countries that did lockdowns versus those that didn't. Sweden didn't do any lockdowns. I don't think Switzerland did either. And they were not having these massive outbreaks.
Yeah.
And so I thought, well, that's probably not just anecdotal. I mean, because it's the entire country,
Yeah.
that was still open.
Mm-hmm.
People going to restaurants, people going to shops,
Yeah.
people living their lives, but yet nobody was, not saying people weren't getting sick,
Oh,
but
absolutely.
people weren't dying.
Yeah.
And so then I started just, as data was becoming available here in Arizona and Pima County, I started looking at it. And, because it was really funny, because what was the cry from the left at that time? Follow the science.
Yeah.
Right? Follow the science. And so when I actually looked at what the science was, like, you're right, we should be following the science. And if we do, we will come up with different conclusions and actions
Yeah.
than what was actually being done.
Mm-hmm.
And so it wasn't difficult at all for me to say, hey, wait a minute, time out. We are overreacting here.
Yeah.
I'm not saying people aren't dying. I'm not saying this is not, that you don't want to come down with this sickness.
Sure.
Because people were sick. Okay. But the vast majority of people were not dying. People who were dying had all these comorbidities. They were way overweight. They had diabetes. Those are the two, really high factors, obesity and diabetes. And then there were some others that factored into it that raised your risk profile for dying as well. So it's like, okay, so if our teachers aren't obese and if they're not diabetic, why are we not in the classroom?
Yeah.
And if you do have those conditions, okay, fine, let's make some accommodations.
Mm-hmm.
But for the majority of our teachers and students that didn't have those comorbidities, we were doing a huge disservice.
Yeah.
And I talked about that every single month. I talked about liberty every single month, and I was just trying to get people to not follow the media hook, line, and sinker.
Mm-hmm.
And it was costly for me because up to that point, I had enjoyed a lot of support from teachers and from the teachers union because I was advocating for them.
Yeah.
I advocate for right.
Yes. Yeah.
And if there's an injustice, then we need to fix that.
Right.
Doesn't matter what it is or where it is. And so, I got things fixed, and teachers appreciated that. But then when this happened, and I was taking a different position from what they had, I was shunned.
Huh. Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I remember during that time where kids wanted to be back in school.
Mm-hmm.
My wife was graduating during that time, and when it wasn't my wife, then she was graduating from high school, and she's like, I didn't get a graduation because schools were closed.
Right.
And then kids are also getting robbed of an education because if I remember right, they're just getting whatever grade they had. If they wanted to, they didn't have to do any homework. If they wanted to do more work to get a better grade, they could. But if you already had an A, why do more work when you don't have to?
Right.
And now you're just robbing yourself of an education at that point.
Yeah.
And all these different
The bar got lowered dramatically
Mm-hmm.
in terms of achievement or grades, like you're saying. Yeah.
Yeah. So I remember that was kind of a weird time. But I mean, there was times where kids were like, wanted to go back to school. And there were kids outside of high schools saying, let us back in and things. And teachers didn't want to because were teachers getting paid during that time for
Mm-hmm.
that? So the teachers don't want to go back to work. They just
Right.
get paid to do nothing. So teachers didn't want to, but the kids wanted to because, one, they want friends back because you can't. A lot of friendships are in school, which is good or bad depending on the friends.
Right. Right.
But then they also want an education because if you're going to go to college, but you're not getting a good education in high school, that's really going to affect your college education.
Right.
And you can't get scholarships from high school if you're not in high school. So there's a lot of negative stuff that happened as a result.
There was a huge loss of learning
Mm-hmm.
during that time, and really those kids will never recover from that.
Yeah. So only the ones that actually care about it will. But then there's kids who are like, oh, my parents are putting me in school, so why should I?
Right.
Now I don't have to be in school, so I can just do whatever. Now you have a.
And everybody looked at me. Everyone, the teachers and a lot of parents looked at me. Oh, you don't care. You want people to die. I mean, I have emails. You want people to die, and it's like, no, not at all.
Yeah.
I want kids to learn.
Mm-hmm.
I want parents to be able to go to work,
Right.
and I want life to proceed as normal.
Yeah. Yeah. Because then we have a deprivation of all the learning, and like you said, parents can't go to work because their kids are stuck there, and if they're younger, they can't just leave their kids there, and different
Right.
things like that. So yeah, I mean, taking that stand is so important, and yeah, so it was probably not that easy, but I mean, showed true colors of a lot of people during that time as well. So you see who truly was there for the kids and who was not.
Right.
So, which every teacher should be there for the kids and not for the job. I mean, they should enjoy their job because they enjoy the kids and live the kids.
And it's funny because since now here we are 6 years later, 5 and 6 years later, and these studies are coming out now, say, oh yeah, masks really didn't do anything.
Tell you firsthand they didn't do
right.
anything.
And oh man, we really messed up because, like I said, the loss of learning.
Mm-hmm.
And every once in a while at a board meeting, even today, I'll say, oh gosh, if we just had somebody back then who was offering a different approach.
Yeah, because there was, but you just weren't getting a lot of things there.
Yeah.
And then, because I mean, I know my parents or my dad was there for some of those as well, and different things like that. So just being supported and was probably helpful as well. So and it was probably difficult by yourself because you were kind of by yourself. Did you have anybody else with you supporting that on the board or teachers or anything?
I had some teachers, but they were not vocal about it.
Okay.
Because they couldn't be, because it was literally a hysteria.
Really?
And you're a professional, and you depend on your colleagues, for your, because they collaborate, they work together, and so the teachers who were and other employees who were opposed to the shutdowns and the lockouts, they just kept quiet for that reason, because their economic viability depended on it. The professional viability depended on it. Dan Post generally was voted the way I did, to keep schools open. There were a couple times when he didn't, but apart from him, and he's passed away since then, but not from the virus.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was alone. Standing in the gap, as they say.
Yeah, there's a lot of, but that goes back to like what the Bible says, talking about us standing up for what is right, even when you might be by yourself. You had people that were agreeing with you all over the place, but couldn't make as much noise or as loud of a voice as you could in that position. But yeah, it's important just in general. Looking back at, he had the Giants pitchers that had to wear the hats and wrote Genesis on there.
Right.
Somewhat similar situation.
It was.
And they had a bunch of backlash from that.
They did, yeah.
And it turned out good for them in the end, because of people standing up saying, hey, no, that finding them is not the right thing, because really the LGBTQ plus is a religion. So you can say this religion over here can be on a hat and we're going to promote it, but you can't promote this other thing at the same time and all this different stuff. So, the backlash from that, just talking about how important it is for Christians to stand up for what is right, even if nobody else is with you. And Elijah did the same thing. Felt like he was by himself, and God said, no, there's actually tons of other people that haven't bowed their face to Baal that are with me as well. Even though Elijah appeared to be like he was by himself. So
if you really believe that the Bible is the sole authority for faith and practice, then I look at decisions that have to be made as being really quite easy.
Yeah, and we talked about, in the last episode, we had Pastor Walker on here, talked about why Baptists, and that's literally what we said. That as a Baptist, we believe that the Bible is the sole authority for faith and practice. And if that's the case, then, like you said, any decision's easy, because you just go to what does the Bible say about this? And that's what I'm going to do. And it might be hard in the sense that you might be the only one making that decision. You'll get a lot of repercussions as a result of it, and backlash and all those things. But to physically know what decision you're going to make isn't as hard, because of what the Bible says, and say, hey, this is the Bible says, this is what I'm going to do. So you're on the board, getting involved from a parental standpoint. What can parents do if they're concerned about something that happened in the schools, and then how can parents be involved in the schools?
Okay, so again, you have to know what's going on, in the classroom, and you do that by staying engaged with your children.
Okay.
And then if something is going awry or has gone awry, then you really need to talk to the principal at the school. If you don't get an appropriate response from them, then go to a board member. Or when you talk with the principal, also let a board member know, hey, I talked with, Mrs. So-and-so, and this is what we were talking about, because this stuff happened. And it goes back to what I was saying before about, I like to know those things so that I can evaluate and assess, do we have a bigger problem?
Right.
Yeah. Because the principal only knows what's happening in their school.
Yeah. So for you,
we have 18 schools.
Yeah. So you get to know bigger things that's happening in each school, whereas the principal knows the details
Right.
about that one school.
Right.
So, gotcha. So being involved, just going up the chain of command, not necessarily start at the top, but
Right.
yeah. And then, why should Christians pay attention to local school board elections? So I think that's important.
School boards are, okay, as we saw during the shutdowns, 2020, 2021, what was happening then? Boards were not acting the way parents wanted them to act,
Sure.
because they were voting to keep kids in masks and to keep schools closed. You know, up here in this part of Pima County, just based on my on the emails that I received during those times, it was slightly more than 50% of the people were not in favor of these draconian measures. And you had, something under, slightly right around half, maybe just a little bit under half, who were all, oh yeah, shut it down, keep kids in masks, my mask protects you, your mask protects me, remember all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And so they're important because of what I was just saying about the voters elected officials need to be enacting and promoting the will of the voters. In this area, slightly over half the voters wanted schools to stay open and didn't want their kids in masks. And so the board failed them. The board as a whole failed them because we didn't do that.
Yeah.
None of the districts in Pima County did. Maybe, I don't know about the state, but in Pima County, definitely not. So in order for elected officials to do the things that you want them to do, you have to vote for them. So, back in 22 and 24, I ran in 22. I had a lady running with me at that time, Mikhail Roberts, fantastic candidate, fantastic person, and she didn't win. And so then she ran 2 years later, and she didn't win then either. And that is such a huge mystery to me because she is such a fantastic person and candidate and parent. And so she didn't get on because people didn't vote.
Right.
And some of those people are Christians. When you look at election returns, like I do, I got some numbers here from 2022. So in the Marana School District, we had 85,000 registered voters. And this is 2022, November 22, 54,000 ballots were cast. So that's a 64% turnout. Not bad, not good.
Right.
It should be in the 80s. So of those 54,000 ballots that were cast, that's total.
Yeah.
I got 19,000 votes. The person behind me, leftist, got 17,000. When you look at the other races in 2022, so Carrie Lake was running for governor. Abe Hamadeh was running for attorney general, and Tom Horn was running for superintendent of public instruction.
Okay.
Each of those, this is Marana voters, each of those people, Lake, Hamadeh, and Horn, each got around 27,000 votes.
Okay.
Out of the 54 that were cast, half went to those three people each. So if you have people who voted for Carrie Lake are Republicans.
Right.
Abe Hamadeh, you don't get many independents or Democrats voting for those people.
Yeah.
Right. So we can safely, conclude that, of the 54,000 people who cast a ballot in 2022, around half were Republicans. And I only got 19,000 out of that.
Interesting.
So that means that when you look at 27,000 to 19,000, there's 8,000 people who didn't vote for for me or for conservative school board candidates. And why is that? Well, it's because of what I said before. The school board candidates are way at the end,
Yeah.
past the judges, past everybody else who you don't have any idea about. And so Christians are included in that.
Right.
And so Christians need to educate themselves. I'm not talking about becoming a, political junkie by any means. But for the races that are not publicized, like school board, kind of like the county supervisor positions, Marana Town Council, for example, which is going on right now, it does take a little bit of work. A little bit, not a lot, a little bit. And you can find out what these candidates believe in, what they stand for, what they're against, and then you can make a decision.
Sure.
And so even Christians need to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. And then what advice would you give to someone who's thinking about running? Because that's a way that Christians can get involved in the school board.
Right.
Someone feels that they're led to run. What would some advice that you'd give to that person?
So first, pray about it. Make sure that that's what God wants you to do. And if it is, you have to look at yourself. I tell people all the time over these last 15, 16 years, school boards in particular, you can't want to be on a school board because you want to change the district.
Sure.
You are one person among five, so you got 20% at best, and you can't. Goes for any candidate for any office. You can't hate the system that you're trying to become a part of.
Sure.
Now, yes, we have a lot of radical communists who, have won primaries this year, and they hate the system.
Yeah.
They're not going to be successful. I mean, they might win office, but they're not going to be successful once they get in office, because you can't tear the system down. So you've got to be, for the school board, you've got to be a champion for the district. Because if I don't like the district and I'm representing voters, 85,000 voters, even though they all didn't vote, but I'm representing 85,000 people, I can't be opposed to the thing that I'm seeking to represent.
Yeah.
That's cognitive dissonance there.
Yeah.
You can't do it.
It doesn't make sense.
Right.
Yeah. So, because I know, because I would say that we probably need more Christians in the school districts.
Absolutely.
So, just knowing that, hey, I'm not going to hate the system. I'm going to work with the system and work in the system to be able to make that difference. But that difference, I feel like, can probably just be made by the way you vote, the way you treat others, the way you act while you're there, and just standing up for what is right. And when something comes by your desk and or whatever the case is, and you don't agree with it, don't just quietly disagree with it. Say, hey, this is why I don't agree with it, and then share that with the other board members.
Absolutely. When I vote against something, there's always a reason why, and I talk about that.
Yeah. So that way they know. That way they know your position. And I believe all of the Marana School District ones are all recorded when you guys have meetings and stuff like that.
You can attend them live, or you can watch them on YouTube afterwards on the district's YouTube page.
Yeah. So I think a lot of districts are actually like that. So I mean, if you're kind of curious about how a school district runs, you could probably look at a YouTube video and be like, this is what's happening in a meeting,
right?
Before you decide to actually go into that type of a thing.
Right.
So just a few more questions. How has your faith shaped your leadership over time? You mentioned you were a colonel in the Army, Army Reserve. You on a board member, things like that. So you have some leadership skills. You've a lot of leadership skills, not just some. We have a lot of leadership skills, and faith plays an important role in that. But how has it shaped your personal leadership skills?
It goes back. the Bible is the sole authority for faith and practice, and I try to live that out every single day. And so whenever there's a moral dilemma, what does the Bible, like you said, what does the Bible say about that? And so when you approach issues or problems, decisions that way, they really become very easy.
Right. So keeping the Bible as the main focus.
Absolutely, the Word of God is for at the forefront.
Yeah, I mean, you get to see how Jesus led people and things like that too. So you get to see the ultimate example of leadership in Christ and things like that. So I know for me, being a manager at Chick-fil-A, that's been like the biggest thing. Like, what does the Bible say when it comes to decisions? But then, how would have Jesus responded in this situation, and how did Jesus lead people? So is huge. And then, is there a Bible passage that's encouraged you through the years of service?
So I actually have two.
Okay.
And one is your dad's life verse.
Uh-huh.
So 1 Corinthians 15:50. I'm going to read it because I'll
Yeah.
mess it up otherwise. Therefore, my beloved brethren, be ye steadfast, unmovable, always abounding in the work of the Lord. For as much as ye know that your labor is not in vain in the Lord. So I like, steadfast. Be steadfast. You have convictions based on your faith, based on what you've learned out of God's word. So be steadfast in those convictions. Similarly, be unmovable.
Right.
Don't let the desire for popularity sway you.
Right.
You always have to abound in the work of the Lord. Always be willing and driving to doing God's work. The other verse, Psalm 31:3, for thou art my rock and my fortress. Therefore, for thy name's sake, lead me and guide me. And that's a plea.
Yeah.
And I make that plea every morning when I pray.
That's good. I like that verse. I haven't heard that verse in a long time. So it's the psalmist saying, Lord, you guide my steps is something huge. Because, when I preach, I've talked about it before. We don't know our next step, right? We often don't even know 2 steps down the road. But God gives us what we need to know for that next step, and all we need to know. So that way it helps us depend on Him. So, those are huge. I'll have to go back and do some research on this one. So it's really good. So how do you stay encouraged when facing criticism or opposition? Because we've heard that you have it, but how do you encourage? Because I can get kind of discouraging at times a lot. How do you stay encouraged when those things happen?
Knowing that God's ways are not our ways.
Okay.
And so when I was going through the whole situation with that restraining order, there was hours and hours and hours of prayer.
Yeah.
going on in that, month and a half, 2 month time period. And just knowing that, of course, I did not know that I would prevail,
Sure.
Legally.
Sure.
Even though that's what I was praying for, I did not know that was God's will. I was hoping it was God's will.
Yeah.
But I didn't know. And so it just came down to, okay, God, you know how this is going to come out, and however it does, I'm just going to, whether I like it or not, I'm going to accept, the way, the outcome that you have ordained.
Yeah. That's just.
And so it's difficult. Humans get wrapped up about the unknown.
Right.
And the unknown is uncomfortable.
Yeah.
It's scary. And, I'm reading a book on prayer from John R. Rice. And then when I teach Sunday school next month, August, 9:30 Sunday mornings.
There you go. Plug in. I'll have the church information down there still.
Right?
Yeah.
We're going to be talking about prayer.
Okay.
And, Dr. Rice says, well, you can know a proper prayer will be answered. God will answer your prayer.
Sure.
And I'm not talking about a no answer. It's a yes answer. It's the affirmative. So even though I was praying, to prevail, I didn't know.
Right.
Because I didn't know that it was God's will.
Yeah.
I knew that it was God's will that I was there,
Sure.
because he put me there, but I didn't know if that was God's will for that particular situation. I kind of thought, well, it has to be your will that I prevail here, because, why would you have put me, in this position for, at the time, 14 years?
Yeah.
So, just, the human mind that doesn't, it just rolls around too much
Right.
on things.
Yeah. Yeah. So that dependence on God because of that is huge. So,
Yeah.
and knowing that ultimately, I just, in general, when hard times come, that ultimately God has you there for a purpose as a testing time. And I mean, I found myself when hard times come that, like, sometimes it's God bringing us back to him. And, sometimes the best fellowship that I've had with God has been during the hard times.
Absolutely.
Because you're so dependent on him. And as we should be all the time, whether we're going through a
Right.
hard time or a good time, you're just so dependent on him that you have almost a better relationship with him.
Mhm.
And then God knows that, hey, you're moving away from me, so I'm going to bring this into your path. So this situation, and not all the time is that the case. Sometimes God, brings it just so we can know that, hey, God's still in control of the situation, and we just need a testing time. Maybe not even for us, but for somebody else. Just that way other people can see that you're going through something, and somebody else might be going through something similar, and be like, hey, but this person trusts God the whole time and wasn't afraid of
Yeah.
what was going to happen. So
Jesus promised that we'd have trials.
exactly. So, and for any number of reasons. So it doesn't always
Right.
mean bad. It could,
Right.
like, trying your faith worketh patience and all
Yep,
these things. Because
exactly.
all of us need more patience. No matter how patient anybody is, all of us need more patience. But yeah, there should always be joy in trials. And if I remember right, the Bible even talks about that, having the joy during the trials. And for me, a lot of that comes from because I know if I choose to let go of what I want and what self says and trusting in God, there will be joy in that trial, because I'm not trusting in me. I'm now trusting in what God says.
Yeah.
So yeah, trials should be a blessing. They shouldn't be looked on negatively in that
Right,
sense.
right.
So
In John 15, I am the branch, you are the vine. Without me, ye can do nothing.
exactly. So shows us without God, like, I can't get through this whole situation because you're the one that I got to depend on. So
Yep.
yeah. One more question after this one. What gives you hope for the next generation? Because obviously, if there wasn't hope for you, you probably wouldn't be doing what you're doing now and staying in it. But what does give you hope for the next generation?
I see the impact that Charlie Kirk had
Yes.
on young people.
Mm-hmm.
And, Charlie's not with us anymore because God determined that his work here was done.
Mm-hmm.
And God needed him in heaven. But Charlie had a huge impact on 20-somethings,
Yeah.
right? And youngers. And so that is encouraging.
Yeah. Absolutely. Because I remember when he was assassinated. I was at work and someone told me, "Hey, Charlie Kirk passed away." And I literally the week before I was watching some of his videos. I'm like, "Wow, this guy's doing something with his
Yeah.
life, making a huge impact on college students, which is right in my age group, and huge impact. Thousands of people showing up from that college." And we think of these universities, they're full of liberal people.
Yeah.
He shows up and he's got a crowd of non-liberal people from the college and not from the college there to support him. Showing that there are people out there. They just need to be excited and riled up, I guess. When you went to his, I didn't go to his funeral, but had people at his funeral maxed out that building with
Yeah.
people outside and
Yeah.
other people in a whole nother stadium that filled out that stadium.
I know.
And people watching it online too, like the
Yeah.
huge impact he had, showing that there is hope for the next generation.
And yes, he had the impact when he was with us, but look what happened after,
Mm-hmm.
right? Turning Point, they opened up, I forget how many hundreds of chapters,
Yeah.
sprung up as a result.
Yeah.
And, these massive church rallies. So many people came to Christ,
Yeah. So
while he was here, but after
yeah.
afterwards.
Yeah. We had someone I think come from, because of him, came actually to our church.
Right,
If I remember right. So the impact on people, I saw, I need to find it. I did see a statistic somewhere that church attendance went up more after that situation
Yeah.
because of that, which, I mean, you think about it, that's one guy doing what God had for him to do, made an impact on that many people.
He was faithful.
Which is,
That is the lesson, I think, for all of us.
yeah.
You look at Charlie Kirk and you see somebody who faithfully served the Lord. And we, if we could only be so faithful.
Yeah, and wasn't very old. I think he was in his 20s, early 30s or something.
30s, I think. Yeah,
30 somewhere right there. And I mean, still had that much of an impact. So it doesn't mean you don't have to be older to make an impact. You can be in your 30s and still make a huge impact. So, in closing, I ask this for all our guests: how can people be praying for you? What are some ways you want people to be praying for you?
I need wisdom and guidance.
Okay.
Like what Psalm 31:3 says. I need to do a better job of depending on God.
Sure.
Every day. Reading the book on prayer from Dr. Rice, it's really kind of restructured my whole outlook on prayer, and so I'm very purposeful and specific about things that I ask for, and so we should be praying, going to Costco, Father, help me find a parking spot close, to the building, or help me find a spot with shade.
Yeah.
There's like 3 of them down there.
Right.
But we should be praying for every minute thing in our life, and I know it mentally. I don't practice it.
Yeah.
So I need prayer there.
Self-practice. Yeah. I mean, that's you've said for all of us, because I mean, there's times where it's a little decision. I don't need God to help me with this decision, but it's not the case at all.
Right.
So I mean, it's kind of cool because you can ask God for the little things that you don't think that matters, but to God, because you're asking for it, it does matter to Him.
Right, because you're showing you're demonstrating dependence on Him.
Yeah.
And that's what He wants.
Yeah. I mean, I prayed for a bike, and I told my parents that I was praying for a bike, and guess what I got for Christmas? I got a bike, and I told my parents I was praying for this. No clue whatsoever. And my dad has a story about he was praying for a pair of shoes, and got a pair of shoes that he needed. I mean, my parents prayed for my grandparents had prayed for a parking spot close to the building in shade, and got it. Like little things that if we didn't, wouldn't make that much of a difference. But God's like, just because I can, and because I love you, here you go. Here's an answer to that prayer.
Right.
I mean, doesn't mean every answer is going to be a yes. It might be a maybe or a no, but God always answers the prayer. So huge thing there. I'll actually have the link. I assume that book's probably on Amazon, I would assume.
I think so.
So I'll have the link of that in the description if you want to find that book on prayer.
I got it at the men's conference, up at Brother Troy's.
Yeah.
Fantastic book. Fantastic.
Yeah. I've read parts of it. I haven't read the whole thing, but I've read parts of it. And it's a really good book. I know Scott Polly also has one on prayer as well.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So if you're looking for books on prayer, I'll put 2 books down in the description for you there and things. So
I've heard that the English preacher, the famous one,
Spurgeon.
Okay. Yeah. Apparently he's got a very, very thick book on prayer.
Yeah, I haven't
that would be
read
good
that
to read.
one, but I think some of that is also public domain, so you can actually look a lot of that stuff up too. So
Okay.
yeah, so really good books to read on prayer. So if you're like, I need something to read, I'll have some of those in the description down there.
Good.
So
Good.
yeah, well, it's been a privilege and honor to
Thank
be
you
able
so
to
much.
do this with you.
It's great fun.
And maybe we'll do another one in the future. We'll talk about what you were talking about in Sunday school and different things like
Yeah.
that. So
That'd be great.
Yeah. So thank you for joining. I'll have all that stuff in the description. If you want to go back and look at our last episode we did with Pastor Walker, that will also be in the description and a tag at the end. So thank you for joining with us, and then we will see you on our next episode.